let me take a deep breath, and you take a deep breath along with me. The very latest in the Big Ten. When we last spoke on Thursday, what were we talking about? You remember we were talking about it looking like it could be imminent that a revote was coming on the state of the fall 2020 college football season in the Big Ten. I understand how frustrating this must be. If you're just a casual fan, if you don't care about the politics of the sport, if you don't care about the intricacies, if you just want, I just want to turn on my TV on Saturday and I want to watch Michigan State versus Penn State. That's all I want. Is that too much to ask? Well, yes, it is. But I understand the questions. The questions are, why can't they play if others are playing? Like, I imagine a lot of people who have kind of been tuned out over the summer and they're just now coming back to the table. You say, wait a second. If the sport was shut down, that's one thing. But you're telling me they're playing in the SEC? Central Arkansas's played how many games? They've already played 2 games, and we can't play because of why? That's the second thing. What are the reasons exactly? Has anyone really nailed those down? What data are they talking about? What abundantly clear, and I'm kind of looking at a peanut gallery here that's actually not in existence. You probably ask yourself, well, why can't they just go play with other teams like Notre Dame did? Or you probably ask yourself, well, how come we can't get the teams who want to play together and the ones who don't want to play can sit on the sideline? Doesn't it seem so easy? Like we used to, I'm at home right now. I'm in Georgia. So across the street, there's this old tree house. And we used to have a little group of folks that met in the tree house over there. And we built this little community amongst ourselves, our little treehouse government. The rules were so simple. You put $1 in every week, and eventually you'll be able to get one of our treehouse T-shirts. I mean, that was it. It wasn't. I'm not going to contribute, but I still want a T-shirt down the road. Or, well, I don't think we can do the T-shirt safely, so none of you get the T-shirts. We need a more clubhouse mentality. We need a treehouse government mentality in the Big Ten. But as we record today, and it is Sunday morning, so don't blame me for anything that happened between now and the time you're watching this. I got a family reunion to go to, guys. I had to pre-record today. We can only know what's recorded, and we can only know what is public. Now, let me tell you this. So we don't know if there's a revote. We don't think there is a revote that has taken place yet. Having accepted what reality is in the Big Ten, if I were involved, I wouldn't let it leak. Under the threat of death penalty, I would not let it leak if we were revoting. And the simple reason is because if we arrive at the same conclusion that we did in August and we released that we revoted and came to the same conclusion, I don't want that torch and pitchfork mob on my front lawn somewhere. So we think we know, but we don't really know. Now, let me give you my interpretation. I think a vote is coming. I fully believe a revote is coming. I don't care how many national blue check marks report otherwise. I believe a revote is coming. The general feel that I've gotten from talking to people as plugged in as you can be here, none of whom are university presidents or chancellors, so take that for what you will. I think about anywhere from 6 to 8 teams are ready to go. You heard Jim Harbaugh yesterday walking. He was on his way somewhere. There's a mic in his face. I mean, he said, hey, man, we're ready to play tomorrow. Or we can play in 2 weeks. We're ready. I mean, we've been practicing. A lot of teams up there have been practicing. I think about 6 to 8, somewhere in that range, are ready to play. I think the number's probably 4 or 5 that don't want to play. And then I think we have a couple on the fence. And I also think what has been rumored with the Michigan president, I think that's true. I think the Michigan president is a big sticking point here. There were reports over the weekend, including this morning, that, the head football coach at Michigan, being Jim Harbaugh, the head football coach cannot get in touch with the president of Michigan, even as the president of Michigan is posting videos of himself on YouTube and Twitter. So again, casual fan comes back to the table, must look at the situation and say, what has 2020 provided us here? What account for yourself, 2020? There is no accounting for it. So what's on the table, plans B and C, non-starters for me. Non-start. A Thanksgiving sync up with the Pac-12, non-starter for me. Don't care about it. Don't accept it. Reject it wholly. Pathetic. If you can't get the season off the ground in October, there's no way you're going to look at me and say, oh, but November will be cool. And then if you can't get it off the ground in November and your plan C, so to speak, is a spring start, That's a double non-starter for me. And I think for most of your quality NFL-bound players, it'll be a non-starter. It is really, really aggravating to even think about those options B and C. But I'll tell you at the more fundamental level, as we all kind of sit here in a holding pattern, and a lot of you have figured this out, but if you haven't figured it out already, again, if you try and remove yourself from the political nature of this, what the most aggravating part of this is now and always will be is that unfortunately, some of the people in decision-making positions here are not remotely as passionate about this sport as you and I are. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means they don't have the emotional investment here. And let me pause. Let me do something I frequently do on this show and tell you what I didn't just say. What I didn't just say is, if you care about this sport, then you should push forward for it no matter what. That's not what I'm saying. If there were quality analysis and data on the table that showed that there is an extreme risk to college football players, 18 to 22-year-old fully healthy athletic males, if they are put in an environment to play college football, if that were on a piece of paper in front of me right now, I'd be the first one beating the drum the loudest saying, nope, we cannot play. Don't care what it means for my personal well-being or satisfaction, we can't play. Guys, that doesn't exist. It does not exist. If anything, the opposite exists. If anything, it is a safer environment. It doesn't exist. And because of that, people like me are very, very, very ardently pushing for a season to happen, as are a lot of you in Big Ten country. But yet your leadership is failing you. Leadership is a very loose term that I use right now. But the flaw in the system is they don't care. So whereas you and I may look at it and understand there is an area that is non-zero risk. So, there is a slight risk, but is fully acceptable. It's just like when you get in a car and drive to work. I mean, you can't guarantee you're not going to get in a wreck, but the odds are very remote. So you're perfectly willing to take the small non-zero risk. We have a non-zero risk here, well within the margin of acceptability. Someone who doesn't want to play the sport, though, can reasonably take that non-zero risk, float it over your head, use medical jargon and terminology that is meant to make you feel inferior intellectually, when in reality, a lot of this stuff has been common sense all along, and they can say, look, there's a risk here. If even one person catches COVID-19 because of decisions we made, we'll have blood on our hands. No, you won't. No, first off, if that happens, you'll have someone who has COVID-19. That's what you'll have. That's what you'll have. What is the risk if you don't play and you put guys back out in the environment that they would otherwise be in? What is the risk there? Because I can tell you what the numbers say there. We can have some firm data-based conversations there. I don't think you want to have them, though, because the argument that you're making and the viewpoint you're coming from is an intellectually bankrupt viewpoint. You don't believe what you're saying half the time. So I'm not going to believe it either. But I cannot stress enough how important it is to have a season. And I want to warn you, Pac-12 is about to experience this. The Pac-12 understands and has understood when people walk away, when you don't give them something good enough, or in this case, maybe don't give them anything at all, but if you don't give them something good enough, you cannot take your base for granted. When you turn on Pac-12 football, and you see that it is a shell of what it once was, what that is some people left and they never came back to the table. And you don't think it could ever happen in the Big Ten. Well, I didn't think what's happening now could happen in the Big Ten. For many reasons, it is so imperative that you get this season off the ground in October, point blank, full stop. Because if you don't, you will have turned a lot of people off to the point where they're walking away. And you may expect them to be right back there at the table come 2021. And I'm telling you, all of them won't be. Some of them are going to find out, I do just fine without Big Ten football. Can you quantify that impact? And by the way, not all those folks will just be fans. Not all of those folks will just be someone buying Big Ten Network or purchasing tickets to a Purdue game. Some of them will be players. Some of them will be future recruits. And mark my words, some of them will be coaches. You're a coach and you look around and you got options in conferences that are willing to compensate you equal to what the Big Ten is, but you view them as taking football much more seriously. Where are you going in the future? What if you're an up and coming coach right now? What impression is being left on you about how serious the Big Ten is about football? What if you're a current coach up there? You're looking around and you have options. And in 2022, 2023, when it's time to have a hardcore behind the scenes negotiation, this is not Ohio State's fault. This is not Penn State's fault, but yet programs like that, for all you know, could be victimized down the road because of the utter incompetence that is on full display in Big Ten leadership positions. Just something to keep an eye on. I think we're going to have some movement early this week at the very latest.